Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Lowell T. Hepworth from Ask.Audio, and in this video we're going to be comparing the sound of the Origin with three other popular and well-known microphones. Now let's meet the microphones that we're going to be using in this audio comparison. First of all, we have the Aston Origin, which has a street price of $249 US. Next we have the Audio-Technica AT4033CL, also known as the AT4033A, and it has a street price of $399. Next is the AKG C4000B, which when it was available, because it's been discontinued, used to sell for $499. And finally we have the Neumann U87AI, which has a street price without the shock mount of $3,199.95. The Aston is made in the UK, the Audio-Technica is made in Japan, the AKG C4000B was made in Austria, and the Neumann U87 is made in Germany. Next, let's look at the placement of the microphones. You can see that they were all arranged with the capsules very, very close to one another to minimize any sort of microphone placement issues. And we're going to be listening to two different recordings, one of an acoustic guitar and another of a male vocal. And all microphones were connected to a Steinberg UR44 audio interface using identical monster microphone cables. And there's no pre-processing or post-processing. What you're going to be hearing is the raw sound of each microphone. And both the acoustic guitar and the vocalist were placed 12 inches away from the microphones to minimize any sort of proximity effect. And now let's listen to these microphones, but here's what's going to be fun. I'm not going to tell you which microphone is which. We're just going to listen to the characteristics of these microphones, all of which sound really good. So we're not going to be trying to pick the best sounding microphone of all these different mics. They all have unique and pleasing sound characteristics. So really we're going to be listening to the personality of each of these microphones. And then at the end of the video, I'll disclose which microphone was which. So let's listen to the acoustic guitar recording first, and we're going to start with microphone number 1. Now, while the playback is happening, I'm going to show you the frequency response curve of microphone number 1. You can see that it definitely has a good amount of low end, and you can hear that in the recording. And if you look at the frequency response, the roll-off doesn't actually start until about 40 hertz. So this microphone definitely has a rich low-end response, but then it also has kind of a throaty sound to it, and that's not due to any sort of bump around 250 hertz. It's actually due to the little dip that starts at about 1.2 kilohertz and extends up to 3 kilohertz. But then there's a little bit of a boost at both 4 kilohertz and at 10 kilohertz, and then finally the frequency starts to roll off at the 15 kilohertz part of the frequencies. So this is a really bold sounding microphone as far as the low frequencies go. There are still some nice characteristics in the mid-range, and now that we know a little bit more about that microphone, let's listen to it one more time. Now let's listen to microphone number 2. The first thing you notice about microphone number 2 is that it has a very pronounced and legible high mid-range. And if we look at the frequency response of this particular microphone, it's very, very flat between 120 hertz and about 2 kilohertz. But there is a bit of a roll-off that starts at 120 hertz, which was a higher frequency than the previous microphone. But then when you look at the high frequency response, you can see that it starts to increase, or there's a little bump that starts at 2 kilohertz and extends all the way up to 10 kilohertz and then doesn't roll off until 20 kilohertz. So this microphone extends all the way to 20 kilohertz without any appreciable loss in high frequencies up to 20 kilohertz. And now let's listen to this microphone again. And now let's listen to microphone number 3. Now, like microphone number 1, microphone number 3 has a really nice low-end response, and if we look at the frequency response, we can see that it extends all the way to 20 kilohertz, and it does waver a little bit. It's got a little bit of a lasagna noodle pattern, and at 2 kilohertz, it starts to get more like a noodle, so there's a little bit of bump between 2 and 3 kilohertz, another bump between 5 kilohertz and about 8 kilohertz, and finally a little tiny bump between 10 kilohertz and 15 kilohertz, and then it does start to roll off past 15 kilohertz. So it's a very nice sound. It's got a very different sort of mid-range to it than microphone 2 or microphone number 1. Now let's listen to it again. Now let's listen to microphone number 4. This is probably the most natural sounding of all the different microphones, and if we look at the frequency response, you can see why it sounds so natural. It's got a very flat response. It does have a little bit of low-end roll-off starting at about 60 or almost 70 hertz, and then it's very, very flat all the way up to just past 5 kilohertz. There's a bit of a bump between 5K and about 12K, and at 12K we do have a fairly pronounced high-frequency roll-off. So this microphone, while it sounds very, very natural, does have a very unique-looking frequency response, but very flat-sounding, and even though it does have that roll-off, it sounds really nice in the low end. Let's take another listen to mic 4. And now let's make some quick comparisons in listening to all 4 of these microphones at the same time. So if we come back in here to Cubase, I'm going to switch these tracks kind of quickly so that you can get an idea of what those sound characteristics sound like compared to one another. So let's go up here and start with microphone number 1, and then we'll move around between the tracks and you'll be able to hear the results. So again, all these microphones have a really nice sound, and they all have different personalities. And now that you know a little bit about those personalities, let's listen to the male vocal. So let's start again with microphone number 1 on the male vocal, and let's just start playback, and I'll bounce through all 4 of these microphones so that you can hear the differences between them. Hey, ooh. Your jeans are still here, and seeing her always reminds me of you. The pictures are slowly fading, but my mind's eye sees every line on your face. Do you remember the good times? 'Cause I do. Or were you truly blind? And if you want to, you can download all of these audio files from our review at Ask.Audio and listen to them and make your own comparisons. But now I'm sure you want to know which microphone is which. So when I set these up, I decided to do them in alphabetical order by manufacturer. So microphone number 1 is the AKG C4000B. Microphone number 2 was the Aston Origin. Microphone 3 was the Audio-Technica 4033CL. And finally, microphone number 4 was the Neumann U87AI. So if we review them in Cubase again, track number 1, or mic 1, was the AKG C4000B, microphone number 2 was the Aston Origin, microphone number 3 was the Audio-Technica 4033CL, and microphone number 4 was the Neumann U87AI. And now to read the full review of the Aston Origin microphone, jump on over to Ask.Audio, where you'll find other great reviews of other great products. My name is Matthew Lolte Hepworth, and thanks for watching.